We're going to begin with the cold. Welcome to CBS Mornings. Coast-to-coast cold snap. It is now blamed for more than 50 fatalities, and more wintry weather hit areas from the West Coast to the Great Lakes just yesterday. Oregon's largest cities, in fact, including Portland, received dangerous amounts of ice, and another lake-effect storm is dumping feet of snow in western New York. Carter Evans is tracking all of it, the impact of this winter wallop.
The cold snap gripping much of the nation continues with deadly consequences. Here in Portland, Oregon, 3 people were killed after a live power line fell on their car. They were electrocuted as they fled the vehicle. A 2-year-old survived after being pulled from the arms of one of the adults.
It appears as if they were scared and exited the vehicle, and with the live electricity, 3 of them did not make it.
The city has been crippled by a devastating mix of ferocious winds, snow, and dangerously low temperatures. A half-inch of ice in the Portland area has coated everything in sight, bringing down trees and cutting off power. These are the icy streets that everyone in this community is facing right now. It is a complete sheet of ice. It feels like the car is at an ice skating rink. Other parts of the country are dealing with whiteout conditions. In Knoxville, Tennessee, so much snow fell on this dock, it collapsed. And near Salt Lake City, plows had to carve out paths for cars to go through. Parts of western New York continue to get pounded. The Buffalo area is now digging out of the second lake-effect snowstorm in less than a week. Another 2.5 feet of snow piling up south of the city are making drifts so high they're reaching the front porches of people's homes. Carter Evans, CBS News, Portland.
The storm is on the move and will bring another round of snow to the East Coast tomorrow. Meteorologist Jim Cantori with our partners at the Weather Channel is all over this for us. Jim, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nate. Check this out. The snow cover now compared to where we were at Christmas when we had the record low snow cover around 20%. Holy smoke, 60%. All right, we got a lot of snow out there. That's acting like a refrigerator with these Arctic air masses. And speaking of them, we've got another one on the way for the weekend. First of all, let's take a look at the system that brings it. It's kind of like a clipper. It's going to come down from the northwest coast to coast, bring some snow across the Great Lakes, Kentucky, eventually the East Coast by the time we get to Friday. Could actually be some heavy snow in here, so we have to watch travel in the morning around Pittsburgh and then in the evening around Philadelphia. And then it's over. The cold air just dumps right in, and we will be dealing with, again, a refrigeration process called the snowpack. Again, not the heaviest of snows, but enough to just keep that snow dream alive for so many who missed winter in November and December that never got it. So here we go. Big cold morning, 5 in Atlanta, 10 Montgomery, Alabama. No snow there, but the problem is we won't get very high for the day. You're talking about 21 degrees in Asheville. That is a record low high temperature. Hang in there, Nate. By the time we get to next Thursday, we're talking about 70 degrees for Atlanta. That's a lot more comfortable.
That definitely is. So a snowpack in and out, just like grocery shopping. Jim Cantori, thank you.
70 degrees sounds good. Turning now to the Middle East, the violence is expanding far beyond the war in Gaza. Pakistan has launched strikes inside Iran after Iran attacked targets in Pakistan. In the meantime, the U.S. says it hit more missile sites of Iran-backed rebels inside Yemen. Chris Livesay is in northern Israel with more on that part of the story. Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning, Gayle. In the last 10 days in this area alone, we've tracked more than 30 rocket salvos coming from just the other side of this hill where Hezbollah is based. It's just the latest flashpoint in what's become a dizzying string of conflicts. Just days after Iran launched attacks on what it called militant groups in nearby Pakistan, Syria, and Iraq. This morning, Pakistan responded, launching missiles on Iran's southeast border region. It says also targeting terrorist hideouts. Among the dead, 3 women and 4 children, according to local media. This as violence in the Middle East spills from one crisis into the next, following the Hamas massacre of Israeli civilians on October 7th and Israel's war on Hamas in Gaza. The U.S. military says it destroyed 14 missile positions in Yemen overnight, calling them an imminent threat that could have been fired at any time. Belonging to the Iran-backed Houthis, seen here parading their weapons in the capital Sana'a. For months, the armed militants have been attacking merchant ships and the U.S. military there to protect them in what they claim is opposition to the war in Gaza, flouting repeated warnings.
These attacks are a clear example of terrorism, violation of international law, and a major threat to innocent lives and to global commerce.
Yesterday, the U.S. designated them a terrorist group, but they remain defiant. The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target all threats in the Arab Sea and Red Sea, said a military spokesman, and to continue supporting the oppressed Palestinian people. In fact, Hezbollah is vowing to continue striking Israel. We can still hear the exchange of fire all around us. This, as the Israeli Defense Forces say that the chances now of a full-blown war erupting here in the north are now noticeably higher. Tony?
That is worrying. Chris Lisley for us in northern Israel. Chris, thank you very much. Back here, we turn to politics and the busy split-screen schedule of former President Donald Trump. In New Hampshire last night, he attacked Nikki Haley, his closest rival in the upcoming GOP primary there. And in New York, just hours before that, he had multiple outbursts during an E. Jean Carroll defamation suit against him. They're working out the damages. This led to warnings from the judge. Caitlin Huey-Burns is in Manchester, New Hampshire once again for us. Caitlin, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Tony. Well, this race is really shaping up to be that two-person contest that Nikki Haley has been asking for. You have the former president really stepping up his attacks against Haley, all in an effort to try to shore up his party's nomination early.
I know Trump threw a temper tantrum about me.
Nikki Haley has a target on her back in New Hampshire.
But if she wins, Biden wins.
The former president stepped up his hits last night in Portsmouth against the former South Carolina governor who he picked to serve as UN ambassador.
So if you want a nominee who is endorsed by all of the rhinos, globalists, never-Trumpers, and crooked Joe Biden's biggest donors, she's your candidate.
Haley hopes to cut into his lead despite new polling showing her down by more than a dozen points. She's been urging voters to turn the page, describing Trump as all breaking, no fixing, all vendetta, no vision.
Yo, Trump!
Before last night's rally, Trump appeared again in a Manhattan courtroom for his second defamation trial, where a judge issued him a warning to stop his verbal outbursts during author E. Jean Carroll's testimony, or he'd be ejected.
It's ridiculous. They should be thrown out, and I frankly am the one that suffered damages.
But Haley has largely stayed away from responding to his legal challenges.
I just tell it on policy. I'm not going to talk about him personally. I don't care about that.
Good evening!
Meantime, a super PAC supporting Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is laying off staff as he shifts his resources to the next primary in South Carolina. And Republican and independent voters we spoke with here in New Hampshire don't seem to like any of their options.
How many of you are excited about your choices this time around? No one. Who are you leaning towards?
I'm leaning towards Donald Trump. I'm not crazy about him as a person. Not looking for a husband or a friend, though. He's the only one that I think is going to change the complete mess we have in Washington right now. He's an outsider.
You still consider him to be an outsider, even though he was president?
He's an outsider because he has no friends in Washington.
Nikki Haley, I'm not an enthusiastic supporter of necessarily. It's more like who's left standing that I can vote for, because I think it's important to vote. And who can I vote for and keep Trump out?
It's just like having to pick the best from a bunch of not greats.
Now, all of those voters told us that they definitely plan on showing up on Tuesday for the primary. Meanwhile, Trump is actually off the campaign trail today. He's attending his mother-in-law's funeral down in Florida. Nikki Haley has a town hall here tonight. Both of them will be here over the weekend. It's crunch time here in New Hampshire, trying to secure every last vote. Tony?
Nikki Haley trying to close that gap. Caitlin, thank you very much. A reminder to our viewers, you can watch complete coverage of the New Hampshire primary all day this coming Tuesday, January 23rd. And if you're in New Hampshire, participate in that primary, and you can watch on all of CBS's platforms.
And on the Democratic side, CBS News has exclusive new details about how President Biden plans to galvanize voters by focusing on the issue of abortion rights, something a lot of people feel very strongly about. Nancy Cordes has our report. Nancy, good morning. You know the feelings are intense on both sides of this topic.
They sure are, but they do drive Democrats to the polls. And that's why, as the Republicans duke it out in New Hampshire, the Biden campaign is switching things up. It had been keeping a pretty low profile, but that is about to change. CBS News has learned the president is going to hold his first joint campaign rally with the vice president and their spouses since announcing his bid for re-election. It's taking place on Tuesday in Northern Virginia, and the focus of that rally will be, as you mentioned, Gayle, reproductive rights. The Biden campaign is also going to launch a new ad this weekend in 7 battleground states. And we're told the ad will focus on the role that the Republican frontrunner Donald Trump played in eliminating the federal right to an abortion. Now, the timing of all this is no accident. This coming Monday would have been the 51st anniversary of the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision. Since it was struck down in 2022, new abortion restrictions have been imposed in 21 states. A recent CBS News poll shows 57% of Americans believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases. And that's why Democratic strategists have been banging the drum. They've been urging the Biden campaign to go big on this issue because it has proven to drive Democratic voters to the polls again and again over the last couple of years. And that could be crucial as the campaign looks for ways to boost voter enthusiasm in the lead up to November, Gayle.
The timing is interesting, 55 years. Wow. Nancy, shifting gears before you go, you know congressional leaders went to the White House yesterday. They went there, of course, to discuss funding for Ukraine, Israel, and the southern border. What can you tell us about what happened in those conversations?
Well, some real mixed signals coming out of that meeting, Gayle. The White House and Democratic leaders said it went well. In fact, Republican Senate leader Mitch McConnell agreed. He said they've made so much progress, the Senate might vote on the package as soon as next week. But then you've got the Republican House Speaker, Mike Johnson, who took a much tougher line. He said last night the whole package might be dead on arrival in the House unless President Biden makes even bigger concessions on border security than he has offered already. And this is a standoff with real consequences, Gayle, because U.S. aid to Ukraine has all but dried up, and there's real concern from both parties, really, that without another infusion soon, the Russians could make significant gains on the battlefield this winter.
Yeah, with all that's happening in this country, the Ukraine conversation seems to have taken a back burner for a lot of people. Nancy, thank you very much.
Something else we're following today, the Justice Department plans to release a report later this afternoon on the police response to the deadly school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School were killed back in May of 2022. Nearly 400 law enforcement officers, you'll recall, swarmed the scene that day, but it took more than an hour, 77 minutes overall, for them to enter the school and stop the gunman. Families and state officials have criticized that delay. A lot of people have criticized that delay, and the DOJ says it intends to provide an independent and comprehensive account of law enforcement actions, looking at how officers were trained and how they were deployed once they arrived at the scene. At least 5 officers, including the district's police chief, have already been fired over the response to the massacre. You can go to CBS News streaming or cbsnews.com for more of that coverage of the Uvalde report when we get it.
The FBI is sounding the alarm about a rise in sexual extortion schemes targeting people under the age of 18. It's happening on gaming platforms, video streaming sites, and social media. Nicole Skenga has more on these scams and the potentially devastating consequences.
A college-bound track star, 17-year-old James Woods, had just gotten his driver's license and posed for his senior yearbook photo.
They always said he had a beautiful smile, which he did.
When his mother, Tamia Woods, says an online predator targeted James on Instagram.
James received 200 messages in less than 20 hours?
Yes, 200 messages in less than 20 hours. And it ranged anywhere from, I own you, to you need to take your own life.
The FBI calls it financial sextortion. Minors coerced into sending compromising images of themselves, some by networks of criminals overseas operating off scripts.
This is a predator that is solely interested in financial gain.
Children as young as 9 years old told to send money or the photos will be posted online.
Whether that is a child going into a parent's wallet or a child accessing their college money. Forms of payment have taken on gaming tokens, gift cards, and other online payment types.
You've seen children hand predators the keys to their college fund?
Yes.
From October 2021 through March 2023, the FBI has tracked roughly 12,600 sextortion victims, all of them minors. Since 2021, at least 20 kids have died by suicide, including Woods' son, James.
The most horrible phone call I've ever received, that my only child, my blessing, is no longer here.
Now the FBI is trying to warn parents and encourage victims to break their silence.
Why do tips matter so much?
That's the intelligence, that's the information that we have that makes law enforcement have the ability to act.
The Woods family shattering the stigma.
You know, he was my only child. And so I have to live through my memories, and that's all I have now.
By sharing their story. For CBS Mornings, I'm Nicole Skenga in Washington.
If you or a loved one is in emotional distress, call or text the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988.
That story is heartbreaking, especially when I heard it was her only child. It doesn't matter if you have 2, 3, 4 children. You've got to figure out a way that your kids know, no matter what they've done, that you can get through it. No matter how bad it seems and overwhelming, you can get through it.
That's a good point, yeah. That I am your safe space. Come to me.
Yes.
It's okay. It'll be okay.
If I had teenagers, I'd be talking to them today.
I'm going to be texting mine
I'd
right
be
now.
talking to them today.
Before I even get up.